Today on Sugar Spun Run, I'll be showing you how to make flourless brownies. Hey Sugar Spun Bakers! So today's recipe is for those of you who are craving something sweet, but maybe have found yourself in the unfortunate situation where you don't have any flour in your house. These flourless brownies are one of my favorite flour-free recipes to make because they don't taste like anything's missing. They're super rich, super decadent, super chocolatey. You're absolutely going to love these. Now to get started, go ahead and preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Next, you are going to need 1/3 cup of unsalted butter. This is 5 1/3 tablespoons. We're just going to add this to a medium or small sized microwave safe bowl. We're going to be microwaving this in just a second, so to help it melt nicely and evenly, I'm just going to cut it into several pieces, about tablespoon sized pieces. Going to add 1 cup of semi-sweet chocolate chips in with our butter. Though I don't see any reason why you couldn't use milk chocolate or dark chocolate chips if you prefer. Now we're going to take this over to the microwave and we're going to heat it in 20-second increments until the butter and chocolate is completely melted and smooth. Now, anytime you're heating up chocolate, you want to do it nice and slowly. If you heat your chocolate too fast, what'll happen is it can seize, which gives it a grainy consistency. It's not nice and smooth. You don't want that to happen. So we're just going to be heating this in about 20 to 30-second increments and stirring really well in between each one. All right, now once your chocolate is nice and silky smooth, like so, you are going to need a separate bowl. We're going to crack 2 large eggs into this bowl, and as with many of my recipes, I really recommend that your eggs be room temperature. Since we're going to be adding in this warmer, melted chocolate, it's just better to have all of the ingredients at least close to the same temperature. I'm not used to having white eggs. I usually have my parents' chicken's eggs, which are brown, but I ran out, so this is what we have today, eggs from the supermarket. We'll add 1 cup of granulated sugar and a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And at this point, you're going to want to grab your electric mixer. You could do this in a stand mixer if you prefer. Today, I'm just using my hand mixer. Now, I'm just going to beat these ingredients together, starting on low speed and then gradually increasing the speed to high. Once my mixer is running on high, I'm going to continue to beat everything together until this mixture is nice and it's a pale yellow and it's increased in volume. This will probably take you about 1 to 3 minutes depending on how powerful your mixer is. Beating the eggs like this is important to give your brownies some structure, and it's also going to give them, as a bonus, those nice shiny crackly tops. All right, so once everything is nicely beaten here, and we did beat everything really well, I'm just going to scrape the sides of the bowl briefly. I want to show you guys what the consistency should look like. And now I'm going to sift in my dry ingredients. If you don't have a sifter, that's fine. You can just whisk them together in a small bowl. The important thing is that you break up any of the clumps, so I'm just going to be using a sifter. First thing we're going to add is 1/4 cup of cocoa powder. Now I'm using natural cocoa powder today, but I don't see any reason why Dutch processed wouldn't work in this recipe as well. Next, I'm going to be adding 1/4 cup of cornstarch. And this is also important for giving our brownies their structure and keeping them from falling apart when you go to cut into them. Finally, we need just a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. The first time I made these, I used a whole teaspoon. It was terrible. We're going to stick with just a 1/4 teaspoon. And we'll just sift these ingredients into our egg mixture. And like I said, doing this just is a good way to get rid of any clumps that would be in your batter. And if you don't have a sifter, just use a whisk to stir everything together until you don't have any clumps before adding it to your egg mixture. We're really done with our electric mixer at this point, so I'm just going to be using my spatula to gently fold the ingredients together until they are combined. I did not forget about our chocolate mixture. We're going to be grabbing that in just a second. All right, and once that's all together, now you're going to want to grab your chocolate and butter mixture from earlier. I like to do this first because it gives a little bit of time to cool before we add it to the rest of our batter. And we are just going to add this in. Don't waste any of that. Make sure we get all of our chocolate in there. There's no way I'm gonna waste chocolate. And just use your spatula to fold this into the rest of the ingredients. You want a batter that is completely combined, but you don't wanna overmix it at this point. So just stir until you have a nice, cohesive, smooth batter. The chocolate mixture is heavier than the rest of our batter, so you do want to make sure you get everything incorporated because most likely there are going to be some hidden pockets of chocolate. You want to make sure you uncover those and get everything well incorporated. All right, I'd say this looks pretty well incorporated. So now we can go ahead and bake it. Now I'm going to be baking it in an 8x8 baking pan. It makes the brownies a little bit thicker since they're pretty thin anyway, I recommend it. But if you want to use a 9x9 baking pan, you can do that. You're just going to want to bake it for a little less time. I'll leave instructions in the recipe below. Now it's important that you line your pan. I recommend lining with parchment paper. Otherwise your brownies are just going to stick in the pan and it's just going to be kind of messy. So I'm using parchment paper. If you don't have parchment paper, use foil and lightly grease it. You do want to have a little bit hanging over the edge. That way when your brownies are finished baking, you can just lift them out of the pan to cut them. I also recommend using a metal pan. It just bakes the brownies a little bit more evenly than a glass one does. It bakes them a little bit faster too. This recipe could work in a glass baking dish, but if you have a metal one, I really recommend you use that. This batter is kind of thick, so we are going to gently coax it to be smooth in our pan. Use our spatula here for some gentle persuasion. It took me so many tries to get this recipe just right, but once I got it, I have not been able to keep them in the house. Even Zach, who is not a big brownie lover, I don't know why I married him, but he has been eating these like crazy. He ate half a pan last time I made them. All right, these can head over to our oven now. Now in an 8x8 pan, they're going to need to bake for about 35 minutes or so. I like to test that they're done by inserting a sharp knife in the center. If it comes out clean, your brownies are ready to go. Now they're not completely ready to go just yet because this is such a soft fudgy brownie. You really need to let it cool completely before you dig in. And I mean completely. Otherwise, you might as well just use a spoon and eat them that way, which you can do. I won't judge you. Now you can speed up the cooling process if you'd like by sticking them in the fridge. That also helps the brownies hold together a little bit better if they're nice and cold. Now once your brownies have cooled completely, you can easily lift them out of the pan and you can dig in. See how nice and fudgy and chocolatey these look? I really think you guys are going to love this recipe, whether you are gluten-free or not, because you know I'm not gluten-free and this is one of my new favorite recipes. All right, if you try this one out, please let me know what you think. I always love hearing from you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. I'm gonna go hide these from Zach now. These are good.